After successfully escaping from the bandits, Ellie immediately took the injured Joel to hide while looking for ways to treat Joel. Ellie then took Joel to an abandoned residential area and hid in a house. Ellie tried to make various efforts to heal Joel, but Joel instead pushed Ellie while telling her to go north to visit Tommy because Joel felt unable to continue the journey. Ellie looks sad and confused because she can't do anything to cure Joel, but she also doesn't want to leave Joel because Joel will definitely die if she leaves him alone. Ellie, feeling frustrated, covers Joel from the cold and leaves the room, while Joel can only watch in silence as Ellie leaves him. The scene then switches to the past and shows Ellie still living at the Fedra shelter. At that time, a girl named Bethany deliberately took Ellie's Walkman to confront her, so they got into a fight and Ellie eventually had to face the leader of the Fedra disciplinary unit, Captain Kwong. Ellie argued that Bethany started the fight by confronting her first, but Kwong couldn't blame Bethany as the girl was undergoing treatment at the clinic after receiving 15 stitches from her fight with Ellie. Kwong regrets Ellie's recent bad behavior because Ellie is actually a smart girl and has quite a skill. Kwong told Ellie that if she continued to behave badly, then she would only become a lowly soldier who had to do a lot of useless work and receive annoying orders from the patrol leaders. Therefore, Kwong advises Ellie to start behaving well and obeying the rules because with Ellie's intelligence and skills, Kwong can guarantee that Ellie will become a Fedra officer who will get a better place to live and give any orders to the lowly soldiers. Kwong added that Ellie had the soul of a leader in her and believed that one day, Ellie would be a great leader who would unite them all. Upon hearing that, Ellie chooses to obey Kwong's words and before leaving, she asks Kwong to return her Walkman. Later that night, Ellie, who is still upset at Bethany for confronting her by offending her best friend, tries to reduce her upset by reading a book. However, since Ellie lives in a shelter, she has to abide by the curfew rules, so she turns off the lights and goes to bed. In the middle of the night, a sleeping Ellie is startled by the appearance of her best friend, Riley, who Ellie thought was dead because Riley had been gone for 3 weeks. Riley, who noticed that Ellie had a bruise on her eye, then asked about the person who had caused the bruise, and saying that she would beat that person up. Ellie replied that she was involved in a fight with Bethany and Riley didn't need to bother beating Bethany up because she had already beaten her up. Ellie then asked Riley about where she had been for the past 3 weeks, and Ellie was surprised when Riley told her that she had joined Firefly. Ellie initially thought that Riley was joking, but after Riley showed her the firearm she got from Firefly, Ellie finally realized that her best friend had really joined the rebel group. Riley said that she would explain everything to Ellie, but she asked Ellie to go with her for a few hours and assured Ellie that Ellie would have the best night of her life. Ellie, who had promised Kwong to abide by the rules, immediately refused Riley's invitation, especially since she had to undergo training tomorrow morning. But Riley managed to convince Ellie, so Ellie finally agreed to go with Riley. After successfully escaping from the Fedra shelter, Riley then takes Ellie into an abandoned building where they find the body of a man. Ellie thought that the man deliberately ended his life by mixing drugs into his alcoholic drink, although Riley disagreed with her, because Riley thought that the man might not have intended to end his life, and was accidentally killed when mixing the drug into his drink. As Ellie picked up the bottle of alcohol, the floor in front of them suddenly collapsed, dropping the man's body to the floor below them. Ellie and Riley quickly fled the scene with the man's bottle of alcohol. Once on the roof of the building, Ellie and Riley decided to taste the alcoholic beverage, and both agreed that it tasted quite good. As they were about to move on, Ellie asked Riley about her real reason for joining Firefly. Riley told Ellie that a few weeks ago, when she snuck out of the Fedra shelter, she met a woman in her 40s who was the leader of Firefly, who was none other than Marlene. Marlene told Riley that she was impressed with Riley's sneaking skills and asked Riley what she thought of Fedra. After Riley told her that she hated Fedra, Marlene then offered Riley to join Firefly and Riley immediately accepted the offer. Ellie and Riley then continued their journey by jumping over the rooftops of buildings in the area until they finally arrived at an abandoned mall building which was their destination. Ellie initially refused to enter because the mall had been sealed by Fedra, which indicated that the infected might still be hiding inside the mall. However, Riley convinced Ellie that the place was safe enough for them, so Ellie then followed Riley into the mall building. Riley then told Ellie to enter the mall lobby first, while she would turn on the electricity. Arriving at the lobby, Ellie was astonished to see the flickering lights that illuminated the entire mall building, because this was the first time in her life to visit a mall, even though the mall had been permanently closed. Ellie then asked Riley about the lights that might attract the attention of people and also Fedra. However, Riley assured Ellie that they were totally safe because the mall building was like a big bunker, so no one would know but the two of them. Shortly afterward, Riley takes Ellie to ride the escalator and Ellie looks so excited because she has never ridden an escalator in her life. Riley then tells Ellie that they don't have much time, so she then takes Ellie to walk through the mall building, where Ellie wonders why some stores seem empty while others are still full of goods. Riley explained that when the outbreak occurred, people started looting by taking the things they needed the most, until the military finally closed the place. After walking for a while, Riley asked Ellie to close her eyes and took Ellie to the playground where there was a carousel ride. Ellie looked astonished to see the ride, especially after Riley turned on the carousel machine and told Ellie to get on the ride. As they ride the carousel, Ellie realizes that Riley is hiding something and tells her to come clean. Riley finally reveals that she will turn 17 next month and Kwang has given her the task of supervising people who do waste work. Therefore, Riley decided to join Firefly. Riley says that Ellie will probably get a better job in the future because Ellie is a smart girl. Riley then invited Ellie to take a photo together at the photo box machine. But their photos turned out black and white because the photo machine had not been updated for years, so the machine could not print color photos like before. Even so, Ellie was happy that she could take a photo together with her best friend, especially after Riley asked her to keep their photo as a souvenir. Soon after that, Riley took Ellie to the arcade, which was Ellie's favorite of all the mall wonders that Riley had shown her. However, what surprised Ellie more was that Riley managed to pry open the coin box so that they could play all the arcade games in that place. While Ellie and Riley were busy playing arcade games, unbeknownst to them, an infected suddenly woke up because the cordyceps fungus in that place was still active. After being satisfied playing arcade games, Riley then gave a pun book to Ellie as a gift. Ellie seemed happy with the gift and they then had fun by throwing jokes at each other from the book. However, their fun disappears after Ellie accidentally finds some homemade bombs in the place and soon finds out that Firefly deliberately put Riley in the mall to guard their weapons. Riley tried to explain her situation to Ellie, but Ellie, who was already disappointed in Riley, left her. Riley then chased after Ellie while revealing that Firefly would send her to QZ in Atlanta. Riley tried to convince Marlene that Ellie could join Firefly and go with her, but Marlene refused, leaving Riley with no choice but to leave Ellie. Riley added that it was not easy for her to make that decision, so she decided to see Ellie one last time and say goodbye to Ellie. Upon learning that, Ellie angrily said goodbye to Riley and left her. However, Ellie couldn't really be angry at Riley, so she went back inside the mall and immediately rushed after hearing someone shouting. Unexpectedly, the shouting was just a game that Riley had prepared as a surprise, because she believed that Ellie would definitely come back to her. Riley then apologized to Ellie and the two of them made up. To celebrate their friendship, Riley invites Ellie to dance and Ellie then begs Riley not to leave her and kisses her. However, in the middle of this happy moment, they were suddenly surprised by the appearance of an infected, so Riley immediately pulled out her gun and told Ellie to hurry up and run away. But their efforts to escape were in vain as the infected caught up with them and made Riley collapse unconscious, while Ellie tried to fight back by stabbing the infected several times. At the same time, Riley, who was already conscious, then tried to help Ellie, and they finally managed to defeat the infected after Ellie stabbed his head with her knife. Unfortunately, Ellie and Riley, who thought that they would spend their last night together happily, had to face the fact that they had both been bitten by the infected. In the present, Ellie apparently decided to stay with Joel and tried to find anything she could use to treat Joel's wound in the house. Ellie finally found a needle and a roll of thread, then rushed back to Joel's place to stitch up his wound. A few days later, Ellie managed to stop Joel's bleeding, but Joel's condition was not fully stabilized because he still needed medicine to restore his condition. Besides, they had also run out of food, so Ellie decided to go hunting in the cold weather. Elsewhere, a man named David was seen leading a group of survivors to pray together for the extreme winter to end soon as they were starting to run out of food supplies. In addition, David also led the survivors to pray for one of their colleagues who had recently passed away. David then approached a girl whose father had just passed away and was being prayed for by them. The girl then asked David when they would bury her father, and David replied that the ground was too cold to dig, so they would have to wait until spring to bury her father. After the service, a man named James, who was David's right-hand man, approached David and told him about their food supply, which was only enough for 1 week. Upon hearing that, David then invited James to go hunting, although it seemed quite impossible to find the prey in extreme cold weather. Meanwhile, Ellie, who was hunting alone, saw a rabbit among the trees, so she then aimed her gun to shoot the rabbit. Unfortunately, Ellie stumbled and accidentally startled the rabbit, so it ran away. Ellie, who was upset about losing her quarry, then continued her journey through the forest, until Ellie finally saw a deer. Without waiting long, Ellie immediately aimed her rifle, then shot the deer. But unexpectedly, the deer managed to escape even though Ellie managed to injure the deer. On the other hand, James and David found a deer that had died of blood loss and intended to take the deer. But at the same time, Ellie appeared and immediately pointed her gun at them while telling them to drop their weapons. David tried to negotiate with Ellie, who finally agreed to give some of the venison to them, as long as they gave her the medicines for Joel. Upon hearing that, David then told James to go back to the town to get the medicines that Ellie needed. While James went to get the medicines, Ellie told David to retreat so that she could secure the situation by emptying David and James' weapons. Ellie then tells David to bring the deer to a nearby hut, where they then light a bonfire to warm themselves in the cold weather. David tries to open the conversation by asking Ellie's identity, but Ellie refuses to reveal anything about herself to anyone else. David then told the story of how he and his group escaped from QZ in Pittsburgh when Firefly and Fedra were fighting. They tried to settle down somewhere, but the looters attacked their hideout several times, so they had no choice but to move from place to place. David added that this year's winter had been cruel as crops were not growing and animal prey was hard to find, making it difficult for them to find anything to eat, even though their food supplies had run out. David, frustrated that he had the responsibility of feeding his group, sent 4 men to a nearby town to find anything edible. But unfortunately, only 3 of them made it back safely as one of them, a man named Alec, was killed by a man who, according to information, was traveling with a little girl. Upon hearing that, Ellie immediately realized that Alec was one of the bandits who attacked Joel at the University of Colorado. At the same time, James suddenly appeared while pointing his gun at Ellie, but David instead told James to lower his weapon and give the medicines to Ellie. After taking the medicines she needed, Ellie immediately rushed away from them, not caring about the deer that was eventually taken by David and James. Upon arriving at the hideout, Ellie immediately injected the medicine into Joel's body, hoping that it would cure Joel's infection. Later that evening, a woman named Joyce, who is a member of David's group, is seen preparing dinner for them. Shortly afterward, a man came into the kitchen carrying a basket of red meat, and Joyce asked about the meat. However, the man simply replied that it was venison, then left. Before dinner, David and James finally arrived with a stag they had hunted. David then informed his followers about their encounter with a girl who was believed to be the companion of the man who had killed Alec. After David said that he would gather some people to hunt them down the next day, he and his group then enjoyed their dinner. The following day, Ellie seemed relieved to find out that Joel's condition had stabilized, so she then injected the drug to speed up his recovery. When Ellie checked the situation around the area, she saw David and his group who were searching the residential area to find the whereabouts of Ellie and Joel. Upon knowing that David and his group intended to take revenge for Alec's death, Ellie rushed back to the hideout to take Joel away. However, because Joel was still weak and his condition was not yet possible to continue the journey, Ellie then gave a knife to Joel to defend himself, while she would try to distract David and his group to keep them away from Joel. By riding a horse, Ellie managed to distract David and his group to get away from Joel's location. Unfortunately, James managed to knock Ellie unconscious. As James prepares to kill Ellie, David suddenly comes to stop him because he intends to take Ellie home with him. David then carried Ellie and told James and the others to find Joel's whereabouts and kill him. When James and the others searched the area, one of them managed to find Joel's hiding place. At the same time, Joel, who heard the arrival of someone, tried to get up and stab the man in the throat so as not to make a noise that could attract the attention of his comrades. Joel, who has recovered, then rushes to find Ellie's whereabouts by attacking James' gang one by one and torturing them so that they reveal Ellie's location. Because Joel tortured them, one of David's followers finally informed Joel that Ellie was still alive and was currently in a town called Silver Lake, which was the location of their community. On the other hand, upon arrival at Silver Lake, David immediately locked up Ellie, who has regained consciousness, and continued to urge Ellie to reveal her real identity. David, who was annoyed that Ellie still insisted on keeping her identity a secret, then told Ellie that she was now alone because Joel was dead. Ellie looked shocked to hear that, but she refused to give up and tried to escape from the place after David left her alone. When Ellie tried to pry off the hinges of the cage door, she accidentally found pieces of a human body lying on the floor. Upon seeing that, Ellie was very shocked and frightened because David and his group turned out to be cannibals and thought that they would make her their food. Soon after that, David appeared while bringing food for Ellie and he realized that Ellie had found out their secret. David argued that he was forced to do so to feed his group who were starving because their food supply had run out. But Ellie refused to listen to any of David's excuses because the actions carried out by David and his followers were very cruel. David admitted that he did have a cruel heart, but he could tell that Ellie also had a cruel heart. David tries to convince Ellie by saying that Ellie is a smart and loyal girl, as well as a natural leader, which is what has kept Ellie alive all this time. David then offered Ellie to join him to lead the group and Ellie seemed interested in joining David, so Ellie then asked about Joel's fate. David finally reveals that his followers are still looking for Joel's whereabouts, and he tells Ellie that he can tell them to let Joel go if Ellie is willing to join his group. Ellie then walked up to David and her demeanor was enough to convince David that she would really join his group. Surprisingly, Ellie turned out to be just acting to trick David, and used the opportunity to break David's fingers while trying to grab the key that David was holding. However, Ellie's efforts were fruitless as David then attacked Ellie by banging her face into the confinement cell until Ellie let go of his hand. In the meantime, Joel, who had gotten information about Ellie's whereabouts, finally arrived at Silver Lake and found the warehouse where David and his followers hid Ellie's belongings and also the bodies of the people they made into food. Meanwhile, a furious David then called James to get Ellie out of the cage, but Ellie fought back by biting David's hand, so David was even more furious and intended to dismember her body. When they were about to kill her, Ellie then revealed that she had been infected and told David to check the bite marks on her arm. Upon seeing that, James was hesitant to make Ellie as their meal, but David didn't seem to believe Ellie's words because Ellie should have transformed into a zombie if she really was infected. Seeing James and David off guard, Ellie sees the opportunity to grab a butcher knife to slash James' throat and rush to escape from David, who then shot at her. Ellie tried to escape from the place, but she found that David had locked the doors, so Ellie tried to burn the place down. While running away from David, Ellie took a knife and waited for the right time to attack David from behind. Ellie managed to stab David in the stomach, but David then dropped her and kicked her. When David was about to kill her, Ellie swiftly grabbed the knife lying near her to knock David down, then stabbed David multiple times. Ellie finally made it out of the place and reunited with Joel. Joel tries to calm the shocked and frightened Ellie by hugging her and telling her that Ellie will be fine, and they then leave the place. The scene then switches to the past and shows a pregnant woman named Anna who's trying to escape from an infected chasing her. Anna managed to reach a farmhouse and tried to call for help, but there was no one in the house, so Anna rushed upstairs and hid in a room. Anna, who was approaching labor, tried her best to fight off the infected who were trying to attack her while enduring the pain of giving birth to her baby. A few minutes after Anna killed the infected, she finally managed to give birth to a baby girl whom she named Ellie. Unfortunately, Anna soon realized that she had been bitten, so she rushed to cut Ellie's umbilical cord before the infection spread. Later that night, Marlene and the Fireflies, who were trying to locate Anna, finally found Anna and her baby girl at the farmhouse. Anna then told Marlene that her baby was not infected because she had cut her baby's umbilical cord before being bitten by the infected. Anna, who has known Marlene for a long time, then added that Marlene should take her baby to QZ in Boston and find someone to take care of her baby, while telling her that her baby's name is Ellie. Anna then gave her a knife to Ellie, then told Marlene to kill her. Marlene initially refused to kill Anna, but she had no other choice because Anna would soon turn into the infected if she didn't kill her. Therefore, Marlene then handed Anna's baby to one of her subordinates. Then with tears in her eyes, she killed Anna. In the present, winter has ended, and Joel has fully recovered. However, Ellie seems to have something on her mind, so she has become more quiet than usual. Joel and Ellie finally arrive in Salt Lake City and try to find Firefly's headquarters. When they entered a building, Joel realized that Ellie was thinking about something, so he then asked Ellie how she was doing. Not wanting to worry Joel, Ellie replied that she was fine and did Joel's command to lower a ladder so that Joel could go upstairs. After successfully arriving upstairs, Ellie seemed surprised when she found something and just left Joel. Ellie apparently found a giraffe eating leaves behind the building and asked Joel not to scare the giraffe because she wanted to observe the giraffe up close. Joel then picked up the leaves near him, then told Ellie to feed the giraffe. Ellie looks excited because the giraffe is very tame, and Joel, who sees it, looks relieved because Ellie is finally cheerful again and laughs happily. After eating the leaves from Ellie, the giraffe leaves, so Ellie tries to follow the giraffe and finds a meadow where there is a herd of giraffes looking for food. Ellie and Joel then have a deep conversation about their plans after everything is over, which Ellie intends to follow Joel wherever Joel goes, because for Ellie, Joel is the only person who is most precious to her right now. After they walk through the city on foot for several hours, Joel and Ellie finally arrive at the former emergency medical camp set up by the soldiers a few days after the outbreak. Joel then reveals to Ellie that he was once treated at the makeshift medical camp and pauses to tell Ellie a bit of his past. As they were about to continue their journey, suddenly a group of people attacked them by throwing bombs, so Joel immediately rushed to protect Ellie, but they managed to take Ellie away and made Joel collapse unconscious. Soon after that, Joel finally woke up and found that he was at Firefly headquarters because Marlene welcomed him. After telling Joel that Ellie was fine, Marlene then told Joel that she really owed Joel for bringing Ellie to that place. Marlene also praised Joel for being able to protect Ellie alone, even though Marlene, who was traveling across the country with a group of armed soldiers, was almost killed several times and lost half of her soldiers. Joel doesn't seem to care about Marlene's praise as he demands that Marlene reunite him with Ellie. However, Marlene tells Joel that Ellie is being prepared for surgery, so Joel can't meet the girl. Marlene then explains that their doctor thinks that the cordyceps in Ellie has grown with her since birth and it produces a kind of chemical messenger, so it makes normal cordyceps think that Ellie is cordyceps, and that's why she's immune. Marlene added that the doctor will remove the cordyceps from Ellie's body, then multiply the cells in a lab to produce those chemical messengers, so they can give it to everyone. Upon hearing that, Joel immediately realizes that they intend to kill Ellie because the cordyceps grows in the human brain. Joel then tells Marlene to find someone else because he doesn't want them to sacrifice Ellie, but Marlene insists that no one else has the same condition as Ellie, so she has no choice but to take the risk even though she has promised Anna to always protect Ellie. Joel tried to fight back, but one of Marlene's men managed to knock Joel down. Upon seeing that, Marlene then apologized to Joel and then gave Ellie's knife to one of her subordinates while ordering her subordinates to take Joel away from the place, and emphasized to them not to hesitate to kill Joel if Joel tried to fight back. While being let out of the medical facility, Joel then took the opportunity to attack Marlene's subordinates and easily defeated them. Shortly afterward, Joel went through every room on the floor and managed to kill several Fireflies while trying to find Ellie's whereabouts before they operated on her, which could cost Ellie her life. Arriving at the operating room, Joel immediately kills the doctor who is about to operate on Ellie and tells the nurses to unhook her and cover Ellie's injured arm with a bandage. Joel then picked up Ellie and took her away from the place by taking the elevator. However, when Joel arrived at the parking lot, Marlene confronted him while pointing a gun at him. Marlene tries to convince Joel to hand over Ellie so they can save the world because Ellie is their only hope. Marlene also adds that Ellie will definitely do the same because she also wants to save the world, even though the only way to do that is by sacrificing her life. Joel was initially hesitant, but he finally chose to save Ellie and kill Marlene. Sometime later, Ellie finally wakes up and she discovers that she is on a trip with Joel, who is driving a car. Joel lied to Ellie by saying that Firefly only wanted to do tests on Ellie and they had found dozens of people who were immune but couldn't make a cure, so they decided to stop the effort. Joel also lied about the looters who suddenly attacked the facility and killed the Fireflies. Ellie then asked about Marlene's condition, but Joel refused to explain anything to Ellie and said that he would take Ellie home. A few days later, Joel and Ellie finally arrived in Wyoming and intended to continue their journey on foot to Tommy's place. Along the way, Joel tells Ellie about Sarah and believes that Sarah will definitely like Ellie because Ellie is a cute and funny girl. But unexpectedly, Ellie reveals to Joel about the first person she killed, who was none other than her best friend, Riley, after Riley transformed into the infected. Upon knowing that Ellie still feels guilty about the death of her best friend, Tess, and also Sam, Joel then tells Ellie to try to let go of their deaths because their deaths are not her fault. Joel also suggested that Ellie find new things worth fighting for, so that Ellie can move forward to face a future that might be much better than the present. Surprisingly, Ellie asks Joel to swear that everything he said about the Fireflies in Salt Lake City is true. Since Joel is determined to end it all to protect Ellie, Joel swears to Ellie that he is telling the truth. The series ends with Ellie choosing to trust Joel and continue her journey with him. The moral that we can learn from this series is to never give up on surviving and protecting the people we care about. However, don't hide your fear and don't be afraid to show that you are vulnerable too, because fear is natural and even healthy as long as it doesn't consume you. On the other hand, showing vulnerability and emotion is ultimately vital for embracing change and allowing someone special into your life.